Police have few clues to go on in the weekend burglary of a large office building. Mark Esterly reports the building did not have alarms, and now the tenants wish it did.
They took everything.
This man was one of many in the Form 3 building who didn't get much work done during the day. According to police, burglars quickly and efficiently helped themselves to nearly $50,000 worth of computer equipment. They apparently struck after a night security guard had gone home. The door to the Barnett brokerage service was forced open, but another business, the IBM Corporation, and the building's main entrance showed no signs of forcible entry. Police say none of these doors had burglar alarms.
Evidently, this is a short sight on somebody's part, building management or the security people themselves, feeling that a security guard on premises was enough.
Davis says the fact this large office building doesn't have alarms isn't unusual. Merle Guild, who owns an alarm company, agrees. He inspected the Form 3 building and issued an alarm estimate when it was built. The bid was turned down.
I guess they thought the money was too much, and yet I would imagine that the estimate was less than one of their typewriters in the building.
Guild says most isolated businesses, stores, and factories use alarms, but those inside a multi-use building tend to assume the building is protected. Often it's not. Lieutenant Davis says many businesses are also failing to ID their office equipment in case it's stolen.
As long as that building has been there and the lack of problems that they have out there, they just didn't probably foresee this coming in the future. This may change their attitude a little bit.
Mark Esterly, Action 5 News.
And we'll have Kent's forecast right after this.
Net 5 and the entire Action 5 News team.
Good evening, everyone. Drugs, the kind that we take on doctor's orders, may be selling on the street tonight. Police are using composite sketches to track 2 suspects who visit pharmacies around closing time and then empty the narcotics cabinet. More from Kerry Deems.
When pharmacist Leonard Cohen went to lock the front door here at the discount pharmacy Wednesday night, 2 armed men forced their way in and ordered Cohen back behind the counter.
And he started calling off names of drugs. That's what he wanted. And of course, some of the stuff I didn't have, and it's spooky. When he asks for something you ain't got, you got to convince him that you ain't got it.
Cohen described this bearded suspect to police, a white male weighing about 165 pounds and about 6 feet tall. Last Sunday, Jack's Pharmacy on Broadway was held up in a similar manner. Pharmacist Victor Craig was ordered by a lone gunman to put all his narcotics into a bag. Craig described the man as wearing a baseball cap and glasses, about 6 feet tall and 170 pounds.
The suspects in both cases had knowledge of what they were looking for, and what they did take out of the pharmacies was easy to deal with on the street.
Despite the similar motive, police say the cases are not related. They point to the differences in the composite drawings, but the pharmacists are convinced otherwise.
The glasses on this composite here, almost to the exact design and everything, were found on the floor here.
Cohen has been robbed before. He's already taken all the security precautions he can think of, but still he was caught off guard. But police say there's not enough evidence to prove there's an organized effort to rip off pharmacies. Lieutenant Davis says he does not want to unduly alarm pharmacists in the area until there's enough evidence. In West Palm Beach, Kerry Deems, Action 5 News.
Joins us live tonight to explain how you can avoid becoming a victim yourself.
This is the time of year when convenience store robberies hit a peak. Clerks inside this 24-hour store especially have to be on their toes. To give you an example, 2 armed robbers simply wouldn't give up this morning. Police tell me it happened this way. They tried at around 7 o'clock this morning to hold up this store on Greenwood Avenue. The clerk simply called their bluff, in a sense telling them to get lost, and they did. And they wound up at this store on Broadway. The clerk there thought they looked suspicious and managed to lock them out. The 2 tried again at this grocery store on 36th Street. A cashier gave them $100 and they fled on foot. And ironically, police told me tonight, this is the way they recommend a robbery be handled.
I definitely suggest that you don't be a hero. Provide or see much information that you can gain by witnessing what's going on that you can relate to the police. As far as description goes, I would say as a victim of an armed robbery, give up what's demanded. Make it easy on them.
Now, we're certainly not trying to alarm anybody. If you are shopping at a convenience store, it's quite unlikely that you will be involved in a robbery. But if it does happen, as Lieutenant Davis told you, the best thing to do is cooperate and give them what they want, because your wallet is not worth as much as your life.
Thank you, Mark. Important advice tonight. Police also advise you to keep an eye out for suspicious behavior, especially someone just standing around or leaving the store and then coming back in a few times. Police say they could be casing the place.
West Palm Beach, where car thieves are trying new ways to get your car. Meyer Fand is a car theft victim. The first auto he bought his son became a crime statistic.
It was a hot car at the time. I had bought it for my son, and he only had it about 6 days, and it disappeared right in front of the house.
The West Palm Beach Police Department hears thousands of stories like it a year. In fact, over the last 5 days, 20 vehicles have been stolen in the city. Lieutenant J.W. Davis says it's tough to keep up with that crime rate.
Within the last 6 months, I've seen it definitely escalate, stolen vehicles. Emphasis is going to be on the operator or the owner of the vehicle being prepared for this type of thing happen.
But it's impossible to put a cop on every corner and in every parking lot. The West Palm Beach Police Department has only one detective assigned to investigate all stolen vehicle cases. But in West Palm Beach in the past 6 weeks, there's been a new trend in car thefts. Lieutenant Davis says it's a combination traffic accident, armed robbery, and then a car theft.
Yeah, I can almost say it's a new trend. I've seen it here, and I've heard it in other cities also happening.
The police suggest people protect themselves from this new car theft trend by watching where you drive and the time of day you travel. Davis says American-made cars, sports cars, are the most popular target for thieves in West Palm Beach. Motorcycles and trucks are not stolen as frequently.
What we can do to protect our investments.
Mark Galden is one of the lucky ones. His Trans Am was in the process of being broken into when he and his wife walked up and scared the would-be thieves away.
Well, there's a guy on the passenger side who was the lookout guy, and the guy in the driver's side, he had broken into the car, broken the steering column, and he was about ready to steal the car. Luckily, I got there before he got started. No car is safe because even though we locked our car, they still can break into a car, and no place is safe around here.
His car came close to increasing the stolen car rate in West Palm Beach. Officials say recently those statistics have been on the rise.
We have seen an increase over, I'd say, the last 6 to 8 months. It has been a more predominant crime that we've been working on.
How big of an increase are we talking about here?
Compared to stats last year, I would say it's probably about a 50% increase in what we had last year.
But there are a few things you can do to protect yourself and your car. Whenever you go out, try to park as close as you can to your destination, and also try to park in a well-lit area if you can. Now, those may seem like common sense rules, but if you want to take it one step further, you might want to invest in a high-tech car burglar alarm system.
With the newer technology, these devices do work. The old adage of having a burglar alarm that false alarms all the time and always breaking down and a tremendous cost continual, those ideas have really been thrown out the window with all the new technologies.
Cross says car alarm prices are going down and adds the systems are getting more and more sophisticated.
Well, we do have a beeper available that can be hooked into any of these alarm systems for your car that can page you with a small waist beeper up to a mile away.
The controls for vehicle protection systems can also be hidden, adding a surprise factor for would-be burglars who attack innocent-looking cars. Dan Wagner, Eyewitness 12 News in West Palm Beach.
19-year-old Paul Smith. Murky waters posing quite a problem for the divers.
There is construction material that was left in the bottom of the lake. The lake is just a little bit deeper than we surmised. And there are culverts, cables, wires left at the bottom of the lake that we did not realize was there also.
The search resumes tomorrow morning. Smith has been missing since Sunday when he and two friends tipped over a paddle boat at Palm Club condominiums. Smith reportedly could not swim.
Finding the body of Paul Smith, a paddle boat accident victim. Today, divers from police and fire agencies throughout Palm Beach County returned to that site but were dressed a bit differently. They were actually experimenting with a dry suit which protects divers searching in black, contaminated waters.
It's going to not only add to the protection of the diver because it keeps contaminants out. We've had divers come up that got sick from diving in stagnated and polluted waters here. It adds to the safety because your tender has communications to the diver.
Divers using this equipment have to alter some basic skills. For example, when using a regular mask and tank, they breathe through their mouths. When using this equipment, they breathe through their noses and communicate with their mouths. This marker is equipped with a radio transmitter which picks up the divers' voices. Those signals are relayed to a third party on shore and allows communication underwater. And that's valuable when looking for drowning victims, stolen cars, or other criminal evidence. A pressurized cushion of air between the suit and the diver's body makes it possible to dive in places as dangerous as a nuclear reactor. But the system isn't perfect yet.
Can you copy me now? I'm getting a lot of static.
Today's session was merely an experiment. Any department wishing to purchase a suit must have at least $1,500 on hand. Greg Schwem, Action 5 News.
In a West Palm Beach subdivision for the body of a young man, and a similar scene with a young girl in South County. Volunteer dive teams from local police and fire departments are being called on more and more to do that in some very undesirable places.
These residential areas with the confined lakes, the canals, the popular area of freshwater fishing out west of our county here, we wind up in just limited visibility diving in contaminated water.
Contamination can vary from bacteria and parasites to chemicals. So today, area dive teams got together to coordinate their resources and test out some new equipment that can make their jobs safer and easier.
Did it.
This dry suit system is pressurized so that no water touches the diver's skin. And as an added bonus, it's fitted with a microphone and intercom system, so divers underwater can talk with their tenders above.
Okay, Phil, can you hear me now?
It gives us better access in the water and our search patterns and what we're doing down there. Where the diver just, all he has to do is continue his search and he doesn't have to worry about anything else.
While the suit promises to be very useful, even experienced divers here found the gear a little tough to get used to.
Pull it straight out and up. Oh, yeah?
Most of these divers currently use their own equipment, and the various departments help out with maintenance. But the new gear would likely have to be purchased by those agencies.
Like most advanced technology, this gear doesn't come cheap. A complete outfit can cost around $3,000. But law enforcement officials here today say they'd get good use out of them because dive teams are becoming the most utilized specialty teams in the area. Phil Russo, Eyewitness 12 News.
Diving accidents, boating mishaps, drownings, all proof that Florida's waterways are becoming more and more dangerous. In fact, records show that 60 people have died in our waters so far this year. That already exceeds last year's fatality total by 20. An officer with the Florida Marine Patrol blames the high accident rate on alcohol, crowded waterways, underage or incompetent operators, as well as fast boats. Well, here in Palm Beach County, where water sports are very popular, we're at high risk for dangerous water accidents. Joining us live in the Action 5 newsroom tonight is Lieutenant J.W. Davis of the Search and Rescue Unit with the West Palm Beach Police Department. Lieutenant, you see many accidents. After the fact, you investigate some. How could some of these be prevented?
I think if we're talking about the basic recreational diving, we had a long weekend here. We're dealing with both of these victims being from out of town and not knowing their background. It's just going back to their basic training. I think that they stay away from the sport for a while. I know one of the victims down from Detroit. They need to check with the local area, notify or see what the problems are in the local area before they dive here.
But don't they depend largely, when coming from out of town or out of state, they depend largely on the boat operators, on the dive boat operators? Or do they not have any responsibility here?
The boat operators do have a responsibility to the passengers on these vessels. They are also taught, I know in these certification courses though, when you go to another geographical area, to get education in that field. Be familiar with the currents in the area that you're diving in.
But when it comes to diving, I think many people are under the assumption that you need to be certified. But that's not the case. Anybody can walk into a dive shop and buy equipment and go off the coast here and go scuba diving. Is that not true?
That is true. Certification is not a state or a federal law. Certification is an accepted standard within the field of the diving industry, and I know that most of these shops that I deal with will not accept or sell equipment or sell you air without a certification card.
Well, how do you feel about having a state or a federal law regarding this?
I can foresee this coming. I think the state legislation is going to step in, and I know they're already looking at it a certain aspect, but I think they should also get input from the local dive population before they make up their mind what to do with it.
All right, a lot of the responsibility then falls onto the shoulders of the divers themselves.
That's correct.
All right. Thanks, Lieutenant Davis. We appreciate your time tonight and safe diving. Jim?
Magnolia. An aggravated assault suspect told police he threw the weapon in from the shoreline several weeks ago. The dive unit's instructor uses opportunities like this to give his less experienced divers a chance to fine-tune search and rescue skills. When a real rescue emergency comes up and they need to quickly find a murder weapon, instructors say the teams will be much better prepared.
Little chance to see their families. Eyewitness 12's Maria Mannion takes a closer look.
He's a white male, 5'6", 139 pounds.
Everybody's tired. I mean, Christmas is coming up on us, and crime gets worse.
That's the feeling of many in this 25-man department. Increasing burglaries, car thefts, all the way to a record 34 homicides this year means everyone doubles up because the staff hasn't increased with the crime rate. Detectives are in early, work late, and extra shifts to handle the caseloads. Arrests are also up 40%, but all that arresting and investigating takes time and tons of paperwork. These ladies will attest to that. The bulging caseloads are tough on everyone, including the crime victims.
They need support. They need a little comforting. They need to know that somebody gives a darn, somebody cares, and we want to help them. And when you haven't seen your family in a day or two, sometimes it's real difficult to have that facade that image you're projecting to them that you do care, but sometimes you're just too tired to show it.
I think each individual handles in a different way. You have to have an outlet somewhere. And, you know, if it continues at this rate, we're working on a record year now.
With 5 homicides in a row this last weekend, some detectives were out all night, in all day, and then back out on the next one.
Of course, the homicide detectives aren't the only ones using overworked and swamped as key words these days. The residential burglary squad alone is averaging 17 to 20 cases per day.
Like I said, we're overworked, understaffed. These are just residential burglaries, you know, for about 6-month period in the south end of our city. This doesn't include the north end, doesn't include grand thefts, retail thefts, other types of larcenies. We just don't work them. We don't have time.
Maria Mannion, Eyewitness 12 News.
Her bullet-ridden body was found behind a Palm Beach County warehouse. The killer still roams the streets. This man shares a similar fate. He was stabbed numerous times. To this day, the perpetrator is still on the loose. These two join a growing number, victims of unsolved crimes.
I think it's frustrating to everybody. It's frustrating to the citizens of the community. It's frustrating to the state attorney's office, the investigators who are doing the investigation, the families of the victims.
Old files age on the shelf, representing foul play unpunished. Investigators say the 72-hour period following a crime is crucial. As each day goes by, leads get fewer, the trail colder. According to the Department of Florida law enforcement, 1 in 10 will be the victim of a violent crime. Of those, only 50% will be solved.
It's a very traumatic experience to be robbed, okay? To come home from work and actually find your place robbed. That's what happened to me. I came home, the windows were broken and so forth, the doors were open, and I found that my home was robbed.
I'm 77 years old. I have never been in a crime. I never been to many courts. At least not trial.
The clearance rate for murder is higher, around 65%, but authorities point out even those cases are tough to crack.
It's getting harder to solve crime. We're getting more, say, opposed to 10 years ago. The problems that are behind a lot of our crime here, the lack of manpower that we have, it all boils down that they are getting harder to solve.
Do is move into the Northwood area, starting off of Northwood Road to 36th Street, both Dixie and Broadway, and we're going to take up our selective enforcement.
The selective enforcement team is rolling through the Northwood neighborhood, targeting criminal activity. Within 60 seconds, they question an alleged prostitute.
What name were you booked under in jail?
At the same time, another officer nails a motorist.
He has equipment violations. He only has one taillight working, not wearing a seatbelt, has no insurance, no registration.
Officers Kate Kilpatrick and Mike Wiggs are teamed up together, cruising Pinewood and Broadway avenues. Suddenly, they spot a suspicious vehicle. Kilpatrick questions a woman who calls herself Karen. Her pockets are searched, and she finds what appears to be crack cocaine. The driver gets the same treatment.
Mr. Ingram, you mean to tell me, looking at this lady, you couldn't tell she was a prostitute? When you told me yourself that you told me yourself that she told you that she would do a sexual favor for you for $20?
The Selective Enforcement Team is used to target problem areas known for certain types of crimes and violations. Police say things like prostitution breed other criminal activity, so they're trying to hit the streets as hard as possible.
You're free to go, Mr. Ingram, but you're walking.
The car is impounded and the woman is arrested. Police with a special squad say their efforts will make a difference. In West Palm Beach, Greg Meyer, TV 12, Eyewitness News.
The team, which made dozens of arrests today, plans to target different neighborhoods over the next several weeks.
After combing the canal behind the West Palm Beach Municipal Stadium last night and again this morning, divers found the body of 16-year-old Donald Courtney Cornett. The John I. Leonard High School student did not come home last night, even after his mother asked him to.
Well, I saw Courtney over at the mall, at the Palm Beach Mall, and he was with the two young men. They were just, walking, and I was with my two younger children. And I even asked him that. I said, come on and go home with me now. And he said, well, we're going home now.
Instead, he remained with his friends, whom police say were involved in an armed robbery attempt. Police say the incident began here at the Granada Apartments last night when two of Cornett's friends allegedly tried to rob two women at gunpoint. Although police say Cornett was not involved in the robbery, he apparently did try to swim across the canal with his friends as they fled. The two boys were arrested after crossing the canal, but didn't tell police about Cornett until it was too late.
It's heartbreaking because these two young men didn't tell us a thing about a third individual. No third individual was seen at the robbery scene. We had no information about a third individual involved in this crime. To be told about it a couple hours later, that's heartbreaking.
Cornett's mother says God has brought her family through many tragedies before, but none so great as this. In West Palm Beach, Rochelle Scholes, Action 5 News. It's a day to review and train for the West Palm Beach Police dive team.
He shined his light out across the canal like this.
This session focused on the recent recovery of a 16-year-old drowning victim whose friends had been arrested the night before as they tried to escape in the same canal. Two officers from the team recently returned from the Recovery and Search School. Today was time to put techniques to the test.
You're in charge of the second person in the water.
While most of their work is recovery rather than rescue, diver safety is imperative.
Well, these people are working in a hostile environment. It's underwater, it's black, it's usually cold. They're working in congested areas where we have things on the bottom. It's just a very hazardous operation.
Instructors set the scenario for today's training exercise.
We do have a report of a missing person out of this area.
That's the direction that the boat was in.
Divers know witnesses are a key factor in successful searches. Time pressure is placed on them to duplicate the stress of a real-life tragedy.
When you run into it, it's a psychological impact upon you that you run into something, you know it's a victim, a drowned victim, or it could be a victim of a homicide. It's scary.
But these lawmen are trained to keep calm because their job is an integral part of solving cases.
Weapons, safes, we've done everything from airplanes down to a knife.
Today's training mission didn't go as well as planned, but officers say that's precisely the reason for the exercise, to see what mistakes were made and how they can improve.
We don't give up.
In West Palm Beach, Rosie Gonzalez, Action 5 News.